Today's episode is brought to you by Fire Facilities. Make training count with their custom-made, all-steel live fire training facilities. Their made-in-the-USA towers and burn rooms are the best for preparing, responding, and surviving the challenges you face every day. Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today's guest is Captain Shane Farmer. Now, Shane has been with the Big Sky Fire Department since October of 2018, and he started in the fire service as a volunteer with Cedar Falls Fire Rescue in 2001. About 5 years later, he was hired as a career firefighter, and is now currently the lead instructor at the Gallatin Valley. He's also the lead instructor at the Gallatin Valley. Gosh damn, I can't talk. He's the lead instructor at the Gallatin Valley Fire Academy and has helped in the building of a multi-agency academy from the ground up. Training is clearly Shane's passion. He demonstrates his love for the fire service by competing in the fire challenge. He demonstrates his love for the fire service. No, it's terrible. He demonstrates his love for the fire service by competing in the Firefighter Challenge for the last 20 years and being an advocate for the health and safety and wellness of all members of the fire service. Yeah. He demonstrates his love for the fire service by competing in the Firefighter Challenge for the last 20 years. He has been an advocate for health, safety, and wellness of all members in the fire service as long as he's been in the fire service. By leaving to go to Florida for a week down to Destin because I'm retired and I can do that shit.
Yeah.
So, I was almost coming out to Montana. There's some friends of ours right near Big Sky that just got married like a couple of days ago. So this time we were supposed to go to Montana to see the wedding. So that didn't happen. The logistics, my family wanted to take a train. All the trains go north.
Yep.
They don't go south. And then getting there and the airport was an issue. So we ended up not going. So this is our makeup vacation.
Well, cool. Like I told you before, you're more than welcome to come visit anytime. You won't want to leave.
I know that. I believe that. My wife wants to go to Glacier Park, I guess. Was it in Yellowstone, yep. Both? So yeah. I'm sure we'll be out there. I just don't think it's going to be it's going to be because we want to go, not because of an event or something like that. Right. But brother, it's good seeing you again. Haven't seen you in a couple months. Shane Farmer, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. Appreciate you having me on here to have this conversation, and my first time doing one of these, so
I'll be gentle.
I'll try to keep your
many firemen's.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool. I met you several years ago, and I think it was you and Mitch, right?
Yes, sir.
At Pearland, Texas. We were taking a class or doing a class 1403.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just blown away about Blue Card. And you two were talking about Blue Card so much and everything. I wanted to have you on here. I'm glad it's finally worked out. Now, I'd like to talk about Blue Card for a little bit, but I'm going to give you all the things that I don't know anything about Blue Card, but what people say, bits and pieces. So what I'm about to tell you is all the shit that I'm just assuming and people have told me, and I want you to correct it. All right. Just real quick. Blue Card means the instant commander stays in his truck. Is that true or false?
That's false. It's true and false. How about that? We'll go with that.
Okay. We'll get into the specifics in a second. I'll ask you to tell me all about it, but okay. Blue Card completely changes the way you communicate on the fire ground, making it more complicated.
I would disagree with that. I would say that's a false statement.
Okay. Blue Card takes up a ton of your training time for the people that are trained in it. And also, if you have one or two people that are not trained in it, the whole thing falls apart.
I disagree and would say that's false as well.
Okay. I preface this with telling you I knew nothing about it, and sitting around talking to firefighters. These are the common themes that I've heard. So now, why don't you tell me about Blue Card? What is Blue Card, honestly?
Okay, so this is coming from someone that, I came from the department I worked with before I came to Big Sky. We did not have, we used our own ICS system, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't formalized through, like depending on what captain or what BC was working, they were going to say it a different way. They were going to take command a different way. They were going to use words that meant something to them, but maybe not something to the mutual aid that came in.
Mm-hmm.
And what Blue Card is it's just an ICS system that's standardized. If you adopt that and you train your people in it and you use it, it's those words mean something to anybody that knows that system and that program, right? So we're speaking the same language. So if everyone on your department is trained in Blue Card and uses it, they know what those words mean. They know what that language means. If your mutual aid partners use it, same difference, right? So it's, to me, it's a way to heighten your safety by just having a formalized system that can be used by your department and hopefully your mutual aid departments if you guys have a good relationship with them. So, I mean, in a nutshell, there's other systems out there, right? Like, I like Blue Card. Once I learned it and got the muscle memory, I think it's very simple. I think it's clean, it's clear, and it keeps everyone in our organization and our county, because our county actually adopted Blue Card, so every fire department in our county uses it. So any mutual aid event we go on, everybody's speaking the same language, whether I know who they are or I've ever worked with them or not. So I think it's very good in that aspect. I do, there's other systems out there. There's, big city departments that have their own language that they use. And as long as everybody's using the same language, I feel like that's going to work for them. Blue Card, to me, is a simple way to do that. A proven system by Chief Brunacini and Phoenix Fire that works for small departments, medium departments, and big departments.
Which, just that name alone, Brunacini carries a lot of weight with it, because if you look at ICS in general, he changed the entire landscape for everybody in the fire service, to your point, big and small. So I think he knows what he's talking about. What about the work, like seeing district or incident commanders sitting in their car down the street? Dispel that myth. What is actually going on?
Okay, so in the Blue Card system, there's three different levels of an incident commander, right? The first level of an incident commander is your captain or lieutenant, depending on your fire department. But basically, it's your officer riding in the fire engine that pulls up on that fire first due. Okay? Mm-hmm. For the first engine on scene, that's your first level of ICS. And in our system, and the neat thing about Blue Card is that there's a formalized system, here's the box, here's how you do it, but you can make it specific to your department and make minor little tweaks that still stay within the framework that work for your department. Okay. And so, but in Blue Card, their first system is the fast acting IC, which means that engine captain's pulling up with a crew of 4, and we're pulling up with a crew of 4. We understand not everybody can pull up with a crew of 4 on an engine, right?
Right.
In Big Sky Fire, we'll have, depending on our staffing levels, we might actually have a driver and an officer in an engine being followed by an ambulance. And even though we're arriving in 2 separate apparatus, that's our crew of 4 in that engine to start, if that makes sense to you. But I'm going to give
2 in the ambulance and 2 in the engine. Is that right?
Correct. But
they make up an engine company.
Yeah, but we make up a 4-person engine company that way. Make sense?
Okay. The department I used to work in did that with a truck company. They had a rescue company with 2 people, truck company with 2 people, but they acted as truck 1 once they got on the scene.
Yeah, same difference, right? We're a group of 4 people. It just, because of our staffing model and where we're at, we have to move in 2 apparatus instead of just 1. So we arrive on scene. I give my initial radio report, and while my crew starts going to work, and then I take over what's called, I'm the fast acting IC, which means that I'm the incident commander. I'm still going to give tasks, location objectives, assignments to my crew, and then the next 2 to 3 arriving apparatus, right? But I'm going to go to work. Okay, I'm not sitting in the engine while watching my guys go to work. I'm going to work just as I would if there was a chief on scene in a buggy, right? So I'm going to work for that first operational period, which is like basically one bottle. So I'm going to do my 360, give my follow-up report, and then I'm going to go interior with my nozzleman while my DO and the other stay out for right now. What's our 2 in, 2 out, right? So we're going interior. I'm only operating on that tactical channel at that point once I'm engaged in the fight. Okay, other apparatuses come on scene. I assign them where I want them, whether it be, hey, you're going to be on deck on Alpha, or I need you to go to Charlie, or I need you to go to the second floor, whatever I need them to do, 2 to 3 apparatus. Then a chief buggy gets on scene. If I'm still engaged, tactically engaged, that chief buggy gets on scene, and then we do a command transfer. And then now option 2 of this system would be command mode. Okay. Command mode means that, yeah, that chief is sitting in a buggy with the windows up, monitoring multiple radio frequencies. Maybe he even has a scribe or a help officer in the shotgun seat with him to help manage that scene, depending on how big the incident is. And then that is option 2. And then option 3 would be that incident command post, that big mobile incident command post that, most big cities have some version of. Smaller communities don't, or maybe there's one per county. But that would be the third level of it. So, 100% of the time, the ICS system is going to start off in that fast attacking mode with that engine company. The command transfer to the BC rig, where he or she is just sitting in that buggy with the windows up, as the myth says, that's only going to happen, on 10% of your calls, maybe. Like the bigger incidents that are going to have maybe, 3 to 10, 12 units arrive on scene, depending on your area and how big it is. And then, how often can people honestly say in the fire service, outside of working in the big cities, say that they set up that mobile incident command and set up a unified command with, with law enforcement and other agencies and stuff like that on real big major events, right? That's not going to happen to us, weekly, monthly, yearly. That's going to be a few handful of times in your career. You're setting up those big incidents. If you're working at those departments that have, volunteer departments, career departments, professional departments that are in that, 30 to 100 member range. Once you start getting into the departments where you're in the 2, 3, 400 line personnel range, yeah, maybe that stuff that is going to happen more often, but that's just not where probably the majority of the fire service is, on the daily basis. So, is that
when you talk about
that
makes perfect sense. Actually, that's the best explanation I've heard of it, because I've heard people try to stumble around basically the 3 levels you just talked about, but without the clarity that you just presented it at. Because it made perfect sense the way you said it. 100% of the time that company commander is going to be the fast attack commander. But let me ask you this: when you transfer from that to level 2, is that always an assumed transfer, or do they actually have to say on the radio transferring command?
There's a script. That's the thing I love about Blue Card is, the further you get in your career, you realize how gray of an area we operate in on a day-to-day basis in the fire service. Mm-hmm. But there's certain things that we just need to be black and white, right? And this is one of them. There's a template. It's a very simple process. The BC comes on scene. in the buggy. The first thing they're going to do is put themselves on scene with dispatch. Then they're going to switch over to the tactical channel. They're going to call to the IC at that point, which is going to be, say, that captain who's working interior, or maybe by now they've already gone through a bottle and they're, back outside and they've put another crew in their place. But either way, that BC is going to check in with the current IC, tell them where he thinks everybody's at and what they're doing, as he's, hopefully been taking notes on the way to the call, if possible. That IC is going to, confirm that, yep, those are all the assignments. I have no other needs, or if you have needs, you tell them. And then the BC says, hey, I'm going to take it from here. You're going to take it from out there. Affirmative. Now the BC switches back over to the dispatch channel, tells dispatch, hey, I'm BC1. We're switching to command mode. I'm the incident commander at 123 Main Street. We're remaining in the offensive strategy. And then if he's changing the alarm package or has more requests, he'll make that request. So we're doing that command transfer on the tactical channel with the fast acting IC. And then we're confirming that with dispatch that we're switching from that fast acting mode to the command mode. So the dispatchers know that, hey, I got somebody that's always going to hear me on the radio now, because they're sitting in a buggy with the windows up. And we always confirm what strategy that we're going to stay in whenever we're switching from one type of IC to another.
So for the company commander and on up, I see the value of not only knowing the system, but how to operate within the system. What about the pipeman or the firefighter, the low level nozzleman? How important is Blue Card to them, short of just understanding it? Is the idea to keep just the main players on the air, like on the radio, or do they have a part in as well? How hard is it for them to learn the system?
So it is an extremely simple system to learn. I understand that because of training budgets and maybe needs for different departments, this isn't necessarily feasible for everybody, but there's ways that you can still get all of your line personnel trained. That Big Sky Fire, we take our probation, every new hire. So when the day that they get off probation, let me take that back. 6 months in, when they're still on probation and they have 6 months left of their probation, we assign them Blue Card. Okay. And it's a 50 to 60 hour online program through the Blue Card organization, all online, all repetition based. You go through all the modules, you take tests on them. So you do the entire online package. And then at the end of that, the people in my organization, I being one of them, run them through a 3-day certification lab. So at Big Sky Fire, every single line firefighter is a Blue Card certified incident commander. Now, the question I get a lot of time is like, you're telling me that you're putting a boot ass rookie on and giving them ICS commander training? I'm like, yeah. Why? So that when they are listening to what's going on, they can understand the system and all the safeties and the protections are built into that system. Okay. That's step one, right? They understand the system. They understand the why, which we both know is very important. And then they can apply it throughout their career as they continue to move forward. Okay. So that's step one. Step two for us is, because we're a unique organization where we're on our own. Our closest mutual aid partner is 45 minutes away. And so we're on our own. There is the potential that some of these younger members of our department, less experienced members of our department, could roll up and be first in, or not first in, but first arriving on a structure fire where they would need to give an initial radio report and set up the incident command system, right? Because we all know that if it doesn't get set up in the front end and you're scrambling trying to set it up after 3 or 4 units have arrived, you're way behind the 8 ball, and it's extremely hard to do. So training them in that to get the understanding of what their officers, what their chiefs are doing, why they're doing it, and then also giving them the capability of setting up that system if they happen to be the one that pulls up to that place first.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's great. There's a reason one of the 5 of the NIOSH 5 is communication, in line of duty deaths, is because communication is always, it seems like to me, a factor in anything that goes wrong on a fire ground or EMS run. It's always a factor somehow, some way. It's somebody not being able to communicate one way or the other. There's the situation that they're in and their needs. So I'm all for any kind of unified communication. And it's not all that new in the sense of, after 9/11, we got the NIM system, right? We realized, hey, we got all these different groups working together and they're not talking the same language. So this isn't a new idea in that sense. So, but again, I've seen people that are on 2 sides of it. There's a love it, can't get enough of it, and then no, it's the worst thing in the world, and or it'll never work for us. Which I for the longest time leaned that way, simply because knowing my department and how hard it was to implement new things, that if you don't have the top admin, support, then that's when it becomes difficult. But that's not so much a program, a blue card problem, as it is an admin problem.
Right.
But communication super important. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Rob Lassetti. I don't think you've ever heard of him. You never met him, right? Yeah, we all love some Robbie.
First time hearing about that fella. I know a guy named Bobby. I know a guy named Bobby.
You don't want to know Bobby. No, you do know Bobby. I think you've spent some time with Bobby. Maybe not Rob.
Bobby, but yeah, Rob Lassetti is an amazing
human being.
Yeah.
So if you know Rob, he's, for those that are listening, check out Performance Under Pressure. Great guy. But Rob is very skeptical about everything, but in a healthy way. He doesn't just take anything face value ever. And he's more than willing to be wrong. He has no trouble saying I'm wrong. I say all this to lead up to bring it right back to blue card. He recently, to his department down in Florida, went to blue card, and he was very skeptical at first. He even had a few questions written, as the class was progressing, like, all right, come on. And when he came out the other end of it, he likes it. He sees the value. They're implementing it. So that's one of the things I love about him. But I figured, I know we've all hung out with Bobby and Rob, same guy, depending on what's drinking that day. Yeah. But I always think about that. I like that. He was skeptical. He came around. What are some of the bigger problems the obstacles that you see for departments when they're trying to go to blue card, when they're starting, like they're thinking about going to blue card? Are there any obstacles that you see that are pretty common?
Yeah, I would say, like, the overarching, I would say, argument or skepticism or hesitancy from going to blue card is going to be from the small and middle-sized departments, right? Because it's a Phoenix Fire developed program, right? And again, the majority of us don't work for the Phoenix Fires in the world, right? We don't have, 1,000 member department and 30 stations or FDNY size department, right? We don't have that. So when you're learning the blue card system, and you have to relate it to your department. And that's the part I think that's the hurdle and the hardest for people to maybe grasp, is when you're learning the system and they're saying, well, every engine that arrives has 4 people on it. Treat it like it's got 4 people on it. You're going to have all these resources here in, 4 minutes, 6 minutes. And for departments that are isolated or smaller, you're like, that's never going to be us. We're never going to be able to get that because we don't have that size of a community. So we're not going to have, 2 BCs and 6 engines and 2 ladders coming to a first alarm. That's not what we're going to have. We're going to have a 2-person engine with a 2-person ambulance following it And then the other 2-person engine and 2-person ambulance are going to show up in about 10 minutes. And then the BC is going to show up with them. And then we're 45 minutes from having anybody else. Like, that's our world. So how do we make it work? Right. And that's the piece that if anybody's interested in this program and formalizing their ICS into what I would consider a better package, like, you can make those adjustments. And there's people like me, Blue Card staff, others that believe in it and use it, that are going to be willing to help explain to you how to make those little tweaks so it works for your department. And it can be something as simple as changing a couple of the words to make the words make sense for your department versus the canned script that Blue Card has. It's still following the same format. Everything's still the same, but maybe this word that we use means something specific to our organization. Or, again, we arrive with 2 apparatuses to get our 4-person company, whether it's truck company or engine company. So that to me, I think is where people are hesitant, like, oh, well, we're not big enough to use that system. And I completely disagree. I think
it's scalable. It's made to do that, right?
100%. And I would throw back at them, if you're not big enough, if you don't think you're big enough to use this system, it's even more important for you to use this or a system because you're smaller, and you have to be even more high and tight because you have limited resources, and you need to make sure that you place them in the right place. And that transitions me into probably the second thing that people, what I've heard people, question Blue Card the most is like, well, we know what we're doing. Like Blue Card's going to tell me where I should put my resources and how I should fight a fire. And that couldn't be farther from the truth, right? Blue Card is an incident management system. It is not a teach a fire officer where their tactical priorities are, right? There's some of that in there for sure. But within your organization and within officer development is where you're going to learn where the importance is of putting people. I think for us, a great example is, a lot of departments are still going on roofs, right? And they send somebody up to the roof right away. And that's not what we're going to do in Big Sky Fire for a number of reasons, staffing being one of them. Another reason is there could be 8 feet of snow on that roof for a good portion of the year. So, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to get a roof report a different way. And so that's how I say that you can make Blue Card fit to your tactical priorities, and they give you help and they have templates and wall art and resources and people that you can reach out to for help, that to make it scalable and to make it work for your department under their system and their guidelines, basically.
How much more training? Let's say you've implemented it, okay,
Yep.
and it's to the phase to where you're having fires, you're using it pretty well. What kind of follow-up training do they recommend to do on it? Because it seems like to me it is a very perishable skill if you're not a very busy department. So, what is the recommendation? What is your recommendation on that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, even a department that's not busy, right? You're still running alarms. You're still doing the smells and bells, calls. You might not run a major incident. Maybe you only have, half a dozen or less structure fires a year, but that doesn't mean that you can't use these words, say them over the radio on a shift or weekly basis, depending on how many of those false alarm calls that you're going to have. The continuing ed is built in. So it's a 3-year renewal cycle through Blue Card. You have to do, I believe it is 36 hours of continuing education over the course of 3 years, which, as we know, if you do the math, it's only 1 hour a month. And that can be something all that can be logged. So if you're a company officer and you're going on, a half a dozen alarm calls a month. Like each time you do one of those reports, that's, could be considered as continuing ed because, and getting some of your skill set
Oh,
checked off, right? There's formalized continuing ed through online through the Blue Card platform. If your organization has a Blue Card instructor, you can do sim labs and run people through simulations. There's a number of great simulation products out there. If you're a Blue Card instructor, you have access to all the Blue Card sims, and you can load them all onto an iPad and just have it sitting in front of, your incident commander 1 and then your incident commander 2, and you can run that command transfer. So the upkeep of it from the training perspective, I think is very simple. You're going to get some real world stuff by being able to say it on your calls, and then you're also able to simulate that at any time. And I think it's something, you're right, it is perishable, right? So when we renew our guys every 3 years, but in reality, we're running them through portions of that sim lab quarterly over that 3-year period. And so if you went a year without actually saying the words, that's the one thing. Hey, you want to come in and say the words today? Yeah. So if you go a year, you're going to be a little rusty,
right.
But to the point now where, I did it a different way for almost 20 years before I came to Big Sky. And, it took me 1,000 or more reps to have the Blue Card system now overtake and be in my brain, be my go-to, right? And I, as opposed to resorting back to the way I'd done it for 10,000 reps, So once you get over that hump and get it into muscle memory, I'm using it every day. And to the point where even when we go on a medical aid, if we're taking an engine and an ambo, our policy is if we have 2 apparatus show up on scene, we're setting up the ICS system because we don't know if that's going to escalate into something bigger. And for us, that could mean even landing a helicopter. So that makes it easy then. If I've already set up, ambulance goes on scene, I pull up behind them in the engine, I set up Main Street Command. I don't have to do all the structure fire verbiage and stuff, but I can still set up Main Street Command. And then now if I need to call in a helicopter, they know that they can call Main Street Command on our air to ground channel, and now I can land a helicopter wherever I need to. So all that stuff can be used as long as you're willing to use it on a daily basis, and then that creates that continuing ed piece that goes over the three years. And then at the end of the 3 years, Blue Card unlocks a refresher module that's usually about 4 to 6 hours, I believe, online. And it's just kind of a quick snippet of that big 50-hour thing that you did at the beginning. And then you take a refresher test online, and then you get recerted for 3 more years.
Wow. I would say, what about, let me ask you this. So
Yep.
I can see the value in it now talking to you. It's the clearest I've had this explained to me. Let's say you are a mutual aid department. You do a lot of mutual aid.
Yeah.
You implement this, but the people that you work with don't, the other departments don't. I could see that being a problem because you're going to have to slip and slide in and out of it. If you have a big enough incident, you have mutual aid. Is there anything that you do or you can say to help these other departments jump on board?
Yeah. So, we're blessed. I mean, I would say our organization through Seth Barker, he, kind of brought Blue Card to Gallatin County in Montana to the point where, he sits on our Gallatin County SOP committee, and it's written into our county policy that we will operate all fire agencies will operate with Blue Card being their incident management system or incident command system. And so that's what's required by our county to use. I would say that the way that you can get buy-in from your mutual aid partners and dispatchers is have that open dialogue with them. show them what it's doing for you. In our case, we even train our dispatchers on Blue Card. Every new dispatcher that comes up, and myself or one of the other instructors gives them a very condensed version of Blue Card and what the words mean. So that way, when they're hearing them and repeating them, it's more than just mine a bird. They can understand why we're saying it, what we're saying it, and we've seen a lot of value out of that. We also teach them on Mayday and how important it is to get that right and get the words and the steps down right, to the point where we have a county-wide Mayday program that everyone's going to call a Mayday the same way. So to me, the selling point to those mutual aid partners would be, when we go on an incident big enough that we all need to be working together, we all need to be speaking the same language, especially if something goes sideways, right? And maybe addressing like, well, let's develop a county-wide or a mutual aid partner-wide Mayday policy that we can all operate a Mayday the same way. What's that look like? And if we can get on board there, maybe it could be like, hey, there's some value in us all talking on the radio the same way. Blue Card's a simple way for us to do that. What if we do that? Obviously, I know that I'm not getting paid by Blue Card. There are other systems out there developed by other really smart people, way smarter than you, Jake. Yeah, crazy. I know it's hard to believe, but yeah.
I've been to community college for 6 years, so yeah, I think I'm pretty fucking smart.
Yeah, you absolutely are, but there's people that have done it in 5. So
we call them doctors.
I guess what it's easy for me to say Blue Card because that's what we use and that's what I feel is very valuable. But ultimately, like if you can get your community, your mutual aid partners all on the same page with some system, that's the huge sell. And to me, why reinvent the wheel when there's one that is tested by a legendary fire chief and his department and proven to be very, very successful? Why would you want to waste your time trying to create something that's basically going to do the same thing? Right? Like let's work smarter, right?
Yeah. No, matter of fact, I've never even heard of any of the other systems, to be honest with you. The only one that I've heard, and I'm not tapped into the fire service in the world, but to be honest, I've never heard of another system. I always hear about Blue Card, and of course, like Rob, I talked to Rob about it when he was going through it. I thought it was interesting. I could see a lot of obstacles in it that are probably created by the individual department or the individual leaders, but I can't find any fault in trying to get everybody on the same page with the same information, talking the same. It goes a long way. So I think it's a great thing. For a couple, this is a rough transition, right? Because I got a heart out at noon. I apologize for that. But when I met you a few years ago, one of the things I thought was super cool about you is that you do the Firefighter Challenge. And you've been doing it for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. My first event was in Rockford, Illinois in May of 2006, I believe. So I'm coming up on 20 years competing in that sport that I love for sure. So
where do you end up landing with it? How many times have you won it?
So, here's the thing, right? I'm going to start off on a different lane as opposed to going right in. Because, the reality of the situation, I must be a product of maybe controversial topics in the fire service, but the Firefighter Challenge is definitely something that is either, has a bad stigma amongst some people in the fire service. That couldn't be farther from the truth. I wouldn't be sitting here today with you if it weren't for the Fire Challenge. I wouldn't be in Big Sky. I wouldn't have met some of my best friends. The network of people that I have across the globe because of the Firefighter Challenge is like, I can't tell you enough how much I think people should come out and give it a try. And there's multiple ways that you can come out and be a part of it. And it doesn't have to be with the the aspirations of being a world champion someday. It could be just how can I be part of this community? Because I can tell you, it is much like being in the fire service since 2001, and in 2023 was my first time ever going to FDIC, because I had a different vision of what that was than what I experienced, right? Um,
Mhm.
but much like FDIC and the group of people that I've been introduced to there, the fire challenge, that's the one percenters in the fire service. That's the people you want on your crew, and not just because of the physical fitness aspect of it, because it's the mentality and the high performance level that those individuals have in their departments, as far as wanting things to be safe, wanting people to do the right thing, doing what's right for your community, being involved in your community. You know, the vast majority of the competitors in the fire challenge are doing all this on their own time and their own dime, and um, and so it's impressive to me to be able to have been part of that community and watched the what those people go back and do in their own departments, as far as moving up the ladder and becoming leaders, or even just being the informal leaders of their shift that get everybody motivated to get themselves through that 20-30 year career healthy, happy, and safe. So that's where I'm going to take that I feel like I've won it every day of my life, uh, and because of the relationships that I've gained by being a part of that organization.
And I'd say you've set some good examples for others to follow. Uh, I feel like I know you pretty good, and I know how positive and upbeat you are about the fire service. You're big into the safety aspect, in the sense of physical fitness, mental health, wellness, and all that. So, did that come from doing the firefighter challenge, or did that mentality, was it always there and it just kind of came out through before that? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I think for me, I've always been a sports person, always been a competitive person, and so when I got into the fire service, it was kind of a natural thing for me to kind of be driven towards. Is you know I God made me a firefighter, and that's just what I'm here to do, and I love it, and I love everything about it. And so when there was a competitive outlet for me to do the things that I love to do as a job, like, it was just a no brainer. Um,
Right.
and I remember, and then at the same time, I'm also internally very competitive and hard on myself as well. So going into my very first challenge that I ever did, I was playing rugby at a fairly high level, thought that I was in really good shape, felt pretty good about how I was going to go and do, and I completely got pounded into the dirt on that first one. Yeah, yeah, like, just, I mean, I don't. For 2 hours after I ran my very first ever individual, I don't know if I felt worse in my life, to be honest with you. I just sitting by a
Really?
garbage can trying to hold it together. It was mentally one of probably the biggest breaks to my internal self that I've ever experienced, and all that did was make me tougher mentally. All that did
So
was
what
make.
was it? Was it a physical thing? I mean, I know you just talked about the mental aspect
Yeah,
of it, but for you to think you're in pretty good shape, and to have such a rough time with the first one, was it a mental thing you weren't ready for, or was it a physical thing? Like, was it a cardio issue? Was it
it
a
was. Yeah, it was.
strength issue?
Yeah, it was 100% physical, right? Like, I went into it thinking that at that time, the fastest people in the world, are running somewhere under 90 seconds, and they call, it's coined as the toughest 2 minutes in sports. And I'm like, well, if the elite guys and guys are running under a minute 30, I should be able to do under 2 minutes. I wasn't thinking I was going to go out there and run a sub 90. I was saying, hey,
Mhm.
I should be able to go under 2 minutes if, where I'm at. And I went out there, and I had the mental confidence at that time. Looking back, it was cockiness, but I had the mental confidence that, hey, I'm gonna go out and do this, and I was ready to go. And that horn blew, and I picked up the high rise pack, and I started going up to the top of the tower, and I got to the top of the tower and leaned over the railing to start pulling up the rope with the other bundle of hose, and looked out at everything else that I had to do. And, at this point, I'm 20, 25 seconds at most into the event, and I knew I was in trouble right there. I mean, right now, because, you go and do anything wide open, full gear, on air, and you're not used to doing that. Boy, your body's in shock mode big time, right? So I struggled through I got through it. I finished it in 3 minutes and 17 seconds was my first time. I put the dummy down like on 3 different occasions and had to pick him back up to drag him over, and just physically and mentally defeated after that. But that's the type of stuff for me that fires me up. That's the type of stuff that gets me going, okay, you can never let yourself be in this position again. You can never be unprepared to do your job, because I took that as a direct reflection of, what if that would have been on the job, right? What if I would have had to go and pull somebody out of a 5th-story building, and I needed to get up those stairs? What if I would have felt that way 30 seconds into an event, a real call for service? I would have been in trouble, right? So that was a click for me, whereas like I'm never going to let that happen again, and that's on me, right? That nobody else can do that. Nobody else can make you want to be better except for you. And it took that moment for me to go, like, in my fire service career, I'm never going to let that happen. And so that's where the competitive part of me ties into the job task relation of the things, of the challenge, right? So that
I love how you tie that into the fire department. I know it's a fire department challenge, but a lot of people see this as a separate thing for them or their team that is strictly some type of endurance test. Whereas you're like, oh shit, what if this was I had to go to work in a 5-story building and pull kids out and shit. I'm not ready. I think that speaks volumes. The people that are listening, I know that speaks volumes to them. It's not a big surprise to me. Like I said, I know you, and I've had a couple drinks with you, and I know where your heart is. I know where your passions lie. And it's definitely your fire service and your community. What did you do? I got 2 questions. Okay. So my first question is, what did you do for the next time? How did you prepare for the next time? And then what has been, if you don't mind me asking, what has been your best time as a single since then?
Yeah. So, I went back, and I knew what I needed to do. I needed to put much like anything, when we fail at something, and I'll use this, and maybe we can talk about this sometime at a different time when we have more time together. But I'm a really big, like, part of my longevity in the fire service package that I deliver to our academy is I'm motivated by failure and fear. And a lot of people shy away from those words, but I again, I am a positive person. I use those words and those feelings to my advantage, right? In my internal, I knew that the people that were close to me in my department at the time was proud of me and my efforts, right? But I thought I failed them because of how I felt and what my time was and what I thought it should be. So going back to the drawing board was, I need to put myself in the situation that I just felt 10,000 times, right? And I feel like that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter what we fail in. It doesn't matter if it's physical, if it's something in the classroom, if it's mental, whatever it is. If you failed at something and you felt a certain way and you don't want to feel that way in that pressure situation again, then you need to put yourself in that situation 10,000 times in practice. So when you get there, you know what's coming, right? Like
Mhm.
I can tell you right now, I've done the individual event at the Firefighter Challenge well over 100 times, and every time I step up to the line before go, I got butterflies. The difference is I can control those because I know exactly how I'm going to feel and when I'm going to feel it at any given moment because I've done it 10,000 times in practice. So I went back and I said, I'm going to have to make myself hurt more than I ever will on race day. So that way race day doesn't feel so bad. And that's what I did. And you know, everybody has their ways of dealing with things. The gym, being healthy, um, breaking down my mental toughness or mental weakness to become tougher, like that is what I do on a daily basis. So that way, when we get those calls that matter, right? We got mama and baby in a room somewhere and we got to go get them. I I do not have a single doubt in my mind that I'm ready for that challenge because I've crushed myself in a controlled environment, whether it be a gym or on the training ground, 10,000 times, and I know I'm ready. And I know that what I've done in preparation is harder than what I'm about ready to go do. And that's what I came back and did. And that's what I've continued to do and try to bring people with me for the last 20 years. Um, and it's made me a better human being. It's made me a better husband. It's made me a better father. And I sure hope it's made me a better firefighter and a better mentor to those that I work with and work for.
Wow. I it so it's no different than probably your view on training in general in the fire department is, I've always said that our job is to train and the side effect is at whatever we do at the fire ground. So it sounds like to me that you treated everything the same way. It's that, let's work hard before we have to work hard. That way we don't.
Yeah.
You busted your ass and you felt all the pain, made everything worse before the game day because on game day you knew what you could expect then. I
Yeah.
think that's great. It reminds me of you were telling me that story just now, and all I could think about was Navy SEALs and how they practice over and over and over before they're deployed. They don't just get called up and all of a sudden they're jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah.
They build up, mock buildings and they practice over and over and over. So when it's time to do their job, they've done the hard work. They know what to expect. I think that's amazing, and I think more people like us need to listen and see the examples that you're setting and others like you. That you're doing a lot. You're blazing the trail for us, and you're just turned around and say, "Come on, let's try it." We
Yeah.
all don't have to win it or get maybe a lot of us will end up vomiting in a can, but tying it to what's important, which is not yourself, it's your community, it's your fire service. I see nothing but great value in that, and I see things like that, smoke divers, which I've sort of changed my opinion on. I never really had a bad opinion on them, but I think it was more of a lack of understanding. But now I look at what, I understand it better having talked to so many smoke divers. But I think it's great. Good on you, brother. I think it's great. When is your next challenge?
So I competed at FDIC this year, and I competed at the West Regional in May. And then because of a busy summer and healing up myself a little bit, I'm not competing again until Worlds, which is in Nashville in October. So, I mean, that's not too far from your neck of the woods that you could maybe drive up and see what's shaking down, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, me and my lovely bride will be glad to come down there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think we've already talked about that, haven't we?
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'll be like 3-4 hours away.
Yeah. And just one more quick piece on that topic, like whether the firefighters want to believe it or not, right? We're professional athletes. Like our job is an athletic job. Even though we have to sit in front of a computer and we have to do some administrative stuff, ultimately we are occupational athletes. And we have to treat ourselves that way. With the Olympics going on right now, it's a great correlation to that, right? those athletes train for 4 years to get one moment, right? That's the same. You can look at that the same way for we should be training physically and mentally and increasing our knowledge base for the course of our career and enjoy the process, right? Because if you don't enjoy the process, you're going to be miserable. So you have to enjoy the process, so that way when you get to that one call for service where you get to save the baby, or you get to competition day, race day, and it's the final event, you enjoy yourself, right? If you don't enjoy the process, you got to find a way to flip that switch and make yourself enjoy it. Because life's too short to be miserable, especially in this profession that we all know can kill us. So we got to find a way to enjoy that process, bring others along the way. And I think that will tie in greatly to an increase in the mental health in the fire service as well, as if we can get everybody physically happy, enjoying the training, focused on the long term and not the short term. And we can turn some of these things around that are kind of plaguing the fire service right now.
I couldn't agree more. And I tell you, the mental health is so tied into your physical health in so many different ways. I'm not saying it's the only thing, the main thing, nothing like that, but I'm saying I feel like, and studies have shown that if you improve your physical health, your mental health improves as well. Yep. Maybe not to the level you want it, but better.
Yes,
and sure. Our job, I agree, our job is very, very physical. That's why the 3 tenets of my podcast is pride, training, and physical fitness, right? And physical fitness, to me, is the one thing that makes everything better. So you might be great at tying knots and rappelling and doing pickoffs, but if you're fat, if you can barely breathe, then obviously, no matter how good you are doing it, you're not as good as you can be.
Right.
So if you get, this is from a guy that I was that guy. I was 70 pounds overweight. I was ventilating like a shark watching TV, being that guy out of shape. So I feel like I can say this. Physical fitness, if you're better shape, then everything you do is better. And if you're one of those firefighters that sit in the recliner and you're 900 pounds and you're like, I still could do the job. No, you can't. You just can't. Sorry. Your responsibility is to your community. It's not to yourself. And people like that drive me nuts because I keep saying it. Physical fitness will improve every aspect of your life, plain and simple. With that, let me ask you this. I like to end the podcast on the same question, which is, what's your best firehouse prank that you've played on somebody or have had played on you?
So I think the best one that I've played, just because of the longevity that it went on, and eventually I had to tell them that I was the one playing the prank, was at the first department I worked for. We did 24-hour shifts and rotated between 3 shifts. It was kind of a modified Detroit or modified Kelly, people call it, schedule.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, so we had shift changes with all 3 shifts on a frequent basis, and there was always this one guy on one shift that would leave his clothes in the dryer, and so then I got sick of it. So I would take the clothes and fold them up, and then eventually I got to the point where and put them in the freezer. Eventually I got to the point where I'd put them in the big salad bowl, fill it with water, and turn it into a giant block of ice that he would have to thaw out to get his clothes. And I mean, this went on for a year. One of the guys on the other shift, would do the same thing. And those 2 guys thought that it was each other that was doing it, while all along I'm the one freezing the clothes. So when I left that department to come to Big Sky, I had to look them both in the face and be like, I'm the one that's putting the clothes in the freezer. And they were like, you have got to be, because they were going at it for a year. And I just sat back and watched it happen. And it was just amazing to me. Love those guys.
There's nothing better than being the silver spoon stirring the shit, right?
Oh, it was amazing. They would go back and forth. And then the guy with the frozen clothes would take the other guy's clothes and do something with them. And here I am just minding my own business in the background, So that was great. What firehouse prank that's been played on me? I don't even know where to begin. I think the good thing is in Big Sky, the culture here is amazing. The culture on my shift in particular is incredible as far as on a daily basis. We're just all picking on each other. And I think I'll tie it down back to when I was in high school. My high school football coach said, like, if I'm not yelling at you, if I'm not picking on you, that's when you need to worry.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I don't care about you anymore. So I think other than just one prank that I can think of that's been played on me, because there's been so many, the fact that my shift mates and my department mates want to pick on me makes me feel pretty good that I must be doing the right thing, because they care about me enough to make fun of me and pick on me as much as they can.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Brother Shane, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on. We barely scratched the surface on so many things, so I'm sure I'm going to have you back. I will definitely come down in October and see you, as long as it's not during my 2-week vacation where I'm going to Florida again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But thank you so much for being on, brother, and I hope you have a great day and stay safe.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you again. I'd love to be back on and dive into a little bit more of the, kind of the mental toughness side of things and longevity in the fire service. I think that there's some value in having those conversations too. So have a great vacation, and thanks again.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Today's podcast was sponsored by Fire Facilities, industry-leading designers and manufacturers of realistic, built-to-last training structures for more than 30 years. Make your training count. Visit firefacilities.com for more information.